Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first video episode of Ian and Jason's Video Cellar. I'm Ian,
I'm Jason.
and hopefully, this new format. We've done a podcast, a couple episodes anyway,
Yes.
out, and we're going to get more out here. Just some of the older ones that we've recorded as bonus episodes down the road. We were just talking about,
Sure.
and so hopefully, this new format works for everybody. I feel that, and Jason does too, that what we talk about and how we talk about horror movies basically lends itself better to video display, and because you can show off the media that we're talking about, collector's
Yeah.
editions and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
That and insert screenshots here,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, it's just so the audience knows
it,
more what we're talking about. So
it does help, especially being that we're primarily a movie-based show. It'd be different if we were talking about books or CDs or whatever, but
right,
movies, you kind of got to have the visual in some respect. And
yeah, I think so.
I think our show lends itself to that a lot more
Absolutely.
so than, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, the only caveat is we have faces for radio,
Exactly.
as they say. We
Yes.
are definitely the we're the fanboys. So
We look
it
the
was
part.
nicer to have we're the cellar dwellers.
Indeed.
It's the video cellar. What can you do?
Yeah. I don't actually have any light on. It's just my pastiness is just radiating the background light here.
This is already too much light. I don't
Right.
feel comfortable.
Yeah. Your eyes are hurting. It's burning my eyes. Right. So, so for our first episode, I figured we both figured we'd do. Actually, it was Jason's idea, really, to do Halloween, because we're gonna have this episode as you're watching this. This will be up on Halloween.
Yeah.
So
And we figured between the episodes that we had done as a podcast that were released, because there were 3 or 4 that haven't seen the light of day, audio, visual, or otherwise.
Right.
Figured kind of go big or go home, man. Why not jump into this YouTube thing and just go with a bona fide classic as opposed to something obscure or something a little hard to find. Why not just come in guns blazing and start with Halloween?
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's, when you say classic, it's beyond classic. It's my favorite. It's at least tied for my favorite horror movie of all time. And
sure,
on some days it could even surpass, but it's hard to say.
What would be the other one?
The Exorcist. Yeah, because it's,
which
we'll get to again. Yeah,
we'll get
time.
to that one, of course. But yeah,
Absolutely.
That's there's very few that seem almost undisputed by any fan, and even people who don't like these movies at least respect its its place in the culture. So
right.
Yeah, very few people are not willing to tip a hat to Halloween or The Exorcist alike.
Right. Yeah, because regardless of where you fall on the slasher scale, and which one came first, Psycho, Peeping Tom, Black Friday, Texas Chainsaw, whichever, no one can deny that it was the success of Halloween that really launched the slasher craze of the 80s. So
easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it set a whole different template,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So for those uninitiated, should I give them the old synopsis here?
Absolutely.
All right. The best one, I've got a few copies of Halloween over here. I'm going to flash because we're going to do our patented consumer report and tell you which ones are the best one to pick up. Excuse me. I promise that is not the Coves.
Well, we're remote.
The best
remote
synopsis,
recording, so
we are remote. I don't think it can be transferred technologically just
not yet. That's 2021.
I'm sure it'll mutate
surprise.
into something far scarier than we've ever been told. But
yeah, possibly.
The best synopsis I feel like was on my 1997 VHS from Anchor Bay, Video Treasures, because the other ones, every time, and we'll get into this in a bit, but Halloween is so saturated in home video
Absolutely.
that almost every new copy that comes out bypasses the synopsis altogether and just brags about the new transfer, the new features, and you've never seen or heard it this way before. So basically, at this point, even manufacturers just assume you know what it's about. But
Right.
we've always tried to approach our show with a newbie sense of horror for a lot of people who are just dipping their toe in.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you may have already seen Halloween 100 billion times, for those few of you out there, we got your back.
Right.
So anyway, it says on a black and unholy Halloween night years ago, little Michael Myers brutally slaughtered his sister in cold blood. But for the last 15 years, town residents have rested easy, knowing that he was safely locked away in a mental hospital until tonight. Tonight, Michael returns to the same quiet neighborhood to relive his grisly murder again and again and again. For this is a night of evil. Tonight is Halloween. So
Pretty succinct description of the film.
Gets to the point. Very nice.
Yeah.
When was the first time you watched it? Do you remember?
Vaguely, because it was broadcast, TV broadcast Halloween night. I was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how old I was. I couldn't have been more than 6. I may have even been as young as 5.
You were a youngin'.
I was youngin'. I came home from trick or treating and it was on TV, and I just sat down. We were sorting through the candy and stuff, and I was watching it, and it was surprisingly keeping my attention, even though I was, like I said, young. It was 5 or 6. I know it was before I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, and so and I saw that right at the beginning when it first came out on VHS. So late '84, early '85. So yeah,
you were born roughly around the time the movie was released.
I was born the month it started filming. Because it started filming in March of '78. Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah. So yeah, and like I said, I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6, probably 6. I'm gonna say 6. It was probably Halloween of '84 when I saw it. Sure. Then like shortly thereafter, I saw Nightmare on Elm Street. But yeah, I don't, for some reason, I'm sure I have ADD. I was never diagnosed, but I'm sure I have it. But it kept my attention away from the candy as a 5, 6-year-old.
Really?
So I was and yeah. For some reason, I don't remember what day Halloween fell on that year, but for some reason, I was able to stay up later because I watched the whole thing. I remember seeing the ending.
Oh, okay.
Him getting shot and then disappearing. Spoiler alert, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm 5, 6. We'll say 6 when I first saw it.
Okay.
And I've watched it, like you said,
here.
a billion times since then. Obviously, like
it's a must-watch
every year. And sometimes multiple times a year.
Halloween of '84 landed on a Wednesday.
Huh? I don't know why they let me stay up later that year.
I don't know.
I guess because it would have been over about 10 o'clock. If it started at 8.
Probably. Yeah. They got to fill that 2-hour runtime, which we'll get to on this as well.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say something relatively blasphemous here. According to when the tape was released, I don't think I saw Halloween until roughly 95.
Oh, wow.
1995. And I was getting into horror films. I might have been, at 95, I would have been about 13. But I was really getting deep into horror films between 8 and 9, 8, 9, 10, that young age.
Right.
And my best friend Jeremy had brought over what at the time was, I believe it was a Blockbuster release of Halloween. So it had Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael on the front and like a big red Blockbuster stripe down the side. And as a matter of fact, we'll pop it up right there. I'm sure I'll find it. Yeah. But he brought it over. I'd heard of it. And I remember us watching it and more or less finding it kind of slow. Now, I say that full well knowing that at that time, at that age, we'd already been spoiled with things like Nightmare, Jason, Night of the Demons, all these movies that went beyond the pale in the shadow of Halloween.
Right.
So kind of going back and watching something that was laying the groundwork, we didn't have that appreciation. I
Right.
don't think.
Right.
And we kind of just watched it and was like, okay, whatever. And as the years went on and several million more movies or whatever later, I had become a John Carpenter fan mostly through The Fog,
Okay.
The Thing,
Yeah.
Christine, and probably They Live. I was a big
Mm,
fan of all of these movies. Big Trouble in Little China. I was already getting a kind of a on a roll with Carpenter and Romero around the same time, same age,
mm,
and eventually Halloween came on TV again, and I think it was the first time I noticed, just being aware that John Carpenter's name was above the title, which it's over the title of all of his movies,
right.
uh, and just kind of going, oh, that was a Carpenter flick. And just being an ignorant kid, it was just one of those deals where I never went back. We didn't have IMDb back then for me to go, oh,
Right.
this is a list of John Carpenter's movies. So I had seen The Fog and all these other movies and had kind of noticed the pattern of it's John Carpenter's The Fog, John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. And when I saw John Carpenter's Halloween, being a fan by that point, I was like, I need to rewatch this because I love John Carpenter. And this is the movie. Okay, so watched it again that second time, and it was like watching a whole new movie. It blew me away. It scared the shit out of me. I was jumping when I was supposed to jump. I was getting the chills when I was supposed to get the chills. Uh, it took me for a complete ride, and I had a whole new appreciation for it um, on the other side of that second viewing. Because, like I said, I mean, when I was a kid, I'm sure we popped it in and was goofing around and laughing, and I'm not sure how much attention I really paid to it that first time, but I just remember kind of again, we were spoiled in a time of gore, excessive gore.
Right.
And this isn't a movie about gore.
No, this
This
is
is
bloodless.
about the stalk and slash. This is literally about being followed and not knowing it. And,
Right.
you know, a guy who's methodically watching you from the corner of every shot.
Right.
And just
Beautifully,
didn't have an
beautifully
appreciation
too.
for that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I I don't know if I
So
really didn't.
watching it that second time, I definitely had.
Yeah.
Oh, go
I,
ahead.
I was just gonna say the the slowness. I think I was aware of the slowness, but I didn't. It didn't matter because I guess there was something about some of those older black and whites, the Universal stuff that I enjoyed even as at that young age. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which, to be honest with you, I don't think I'd actually even seen any of the Universals. I'm going off of basically how I interpreted those Universal movies through Young Frankenstein, which I had seen when I was like
Sure.
3 or 4 and
Yeah.
loved. Um, so I don't know if the slowness bothered me, but then again, I was also 5, so what's slow, or 6?
Right.
What's
We
slow
don't
at
we don't
six
really
years old?
have we don't really have a model for that. And
Hmm.
by the time I was really getting into films, the excess of the 80s was already well programmed into me.
Right.
I mean, even outside of horror, there was Rambo, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, everything was meant to be
Up your
thrown in your
pace.
face,
Yeah.
essentially, for better or worse. And not to say I was desensitized by anything, but you're brought up in a culture of excess in the 80s that really tapered off only a little through the 90s. And when you get something like Halloween or even The Exorcist for that matter, that's not so much a slow boil, but you really got to appreciate the craft that goes into scaring you,
Right.
um, and the time it takes to really build your nerves. Uh, so yeah, going into something like Halloween, having been brought up in such a in your face culture of film, it was sort of like putting the brakes on a bike that was out of control, so it was
Yeah.
like, someone's not dying every 5 minutes. Why am I watching this?
Right.
And I didn't develop that appreciation for cinema in general until well into my teens. And at that point I was really trying to absorb story and had sort of had the inkling to want to write or screenwrite or tell my own stories in some fashion. So I was really trying to pay attention to how these things were done. And that's when I really started collecting things like Fangoria and stuff like that and trying to learn about the people behind the films, which in this day and age, it's wonderful to have Blu-rays and DVDs that have all these bonus features and commentaries because it's free film school. And,
in a sense, yeah, absolutely.
you know, in our day, me and you, we either had to go to the library and get a movie on the subject, or not a movie, but a book on the subject, or subscribe to Fangoria and read about the Tom Savinis and John Carpenters and George Romeros of our day. And
right.
That was our IMDb back then. You know, that was how we learned who these people were.
At least for
and then
horror
you rent
films.
the tape, and at least for horror films, or in sci-fi, you had Starlog.
Right.
You know, Starlog was a big one. That was it was the elder sibling of Fangoria. Even that was what started it.
Right.
But yeah, stuff like that with like Star Trek and Twilight Zone and all that. We didn't really have a way to appreciate the work that went into these films. We just kind of had to watch the film at face value and then go about your day, you know.
Right.
And anything you wanted to know, you had to hunt that stuff down. So it's pretty cool that we have what we have now. Right. And I'll be going into that here in a few, but just wanted
I would say that a lot of there are times that I feel that some of the magic is lost because I know so much about how these films were made and what went into them.
Sure.
But I also, more so than that, I appreciate the insight of having actors and directors and writers express what they were thinking and their method of doing it. That far outweighs the little loss of magic I get sometimes from it. But
sure.
Not that I've noticed it with that Halloween or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street where I've seen documentaries and stuff. It hasn't ruined those movies for me, but there are times when I'm watching, like, wonder if I'm losing something with this. You know, just a little bit of magic, you know.
I could see what you're saying. I feel like in my sense it was a peek behind the curtain, which usually ruins things for people. You never want the masked magician to show you how the trick was done. But if you're really serious about this stuff and you really want to be a filmmaker, it's more for them anyway.
Right.
You know, these types of things. You know, if you're wanting to be the next Greg Nicotero or whatever, it behooves you to learn this stuff.
That's true.
That said, it's priceless knowledge to see not only how they went about this, but the struggle to get there. You know, for instance, if we can dive a little bit into the history of Halloween, this was not a bona fide hit. This movie could have very easily disappeared in no time flat. In fact, if it came out today, we wouldn't be talking about it. Right. I seriously don't think so.
No, I agree. It would be like, I mean, some people, the horror community would be talking about it, but no one else would be, like it was back then.
Right. Right. And, you know, it is fascinating to see what movies we see now that we kind of take for granted that who knows in 30, 40 years, are they going to be talked about the way we talk about Halloween now? You know,
there's a couple I think that might be, but that's just my opinion. Yeah. I like them, but you know, you never know.
Sure. And it's all subjective anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You never know what's going to go from cult midnight hit to, you know, there's a thesis written about why the killer's doing what the killer's doing and what should these kids have been punished for fucking and all this stuff. You know, it's, you know, only certain movies lend themselves to that. And Halloween came out at just the right time. And, basically what it started off being was producer Irwin Yablans. He was on his way home from the Milan Film Festival in 1976. And on the flight home, he had come up with an idea for something he called the babysitter murders. And all he had was the roughest idea of a few hot chicks in high school who were being stalked by a killer. And they babysat, you know, because everyone babysat back in the day at some point around that age. And he just thought you could make a fun spooky movie out of it. And that was literally it. That's all he came up with. And he needed someone to kind of take that idea and kick it up in the air. And when he got home, he started looking into John Carpenter because Irwin Yablans was his production company was Compass International, and Compass International had just released John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13 back in '76. So, being a fan of that film and seeing what John could do, he was like, "This guy could probably do it for me. This guy he's got the know-how." So, he came to John and said, "Would you like to do this movie? This is what I'm thinking of doing." And John said, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "I'll tell you what." And this is this is really something on John's part, because John at the time was fairly inexperienced.
Right.
You know, Assault on Precinct 13, every movie he had done is very competently made. You could tell he knew what he was doing, but he only had 2 movies under his belt at the time.
Was it Dark
and a few
Star?
short films.
Dark Star and
which he did with you got it. Yep. And Dark Star, even that was with a young Dan O'Bannon, who went on to do Alien a few years later, you know. So John played a pretty risky card here. He said, "Yeah, I'll do it for $10,000 on 3 conditions." He goes, "Not only will I direct it, I'll write it and I'll score it just for $10,000. But you have to do 3 things for me to agree. A, I want complete creative control." And basically what that means, to anyone who doesn't know, directors do not have final say on any movie unless they fight for it.
Right. It's in the contract.
And yes, because basically what a lot of people don't know, especially up and coming filmmakers, the producer's really the guy who makes all the decisions for you. And understandably so. It's their money. They're investing in you to make this film. Basically, it would be the equivalent of the guy who built your ship saying, "I'm trusting you with my boat to steer it and get it where I want it to go."
Right.
And, you know, it's no small thing to say, "I'm going to scrape up this dough and you're going to make this a success so I can make it back tenfold." So as much as people think a director is the end all be all, they're really not. And that's the scary thing about the business is when the movie tanks, nobody blames the producers, nobody blames the writers, nobody blames the actors. It's the director who goes on the cross for it. And
usually
the director oftentimes has very little say in what hits the screen. So John, being a relative unknown, said, "I want complete creative control. You're giving me the money to do this. I'm going to do it. I don't want to hear anybody. I don't want anyone breathing down my neck." You know. And Irwin said, "Sure, go for it." So what's the other 2? The other one was pretty simple. I want my name over the title. It was going to be John Carpenter's Halloween. And that's pretty much been the same for the rest of his career.
At that point, it was going to be John Carpenter's Babysitter Murders, though, wasn't it?
Correct, yeah.
Halloween hadn't
gotten to that point yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting in itself.
Right.
3, though, he was dating Deborah Hill. And Deborah Hill was just a script supervisor on Assault on Precinct 13. That's how they met. At least how they met. That's at least the first time they worked together. She was, even though Deborah became a huge producer, and she's done so many cool things up until her untimely death in 2005, she really had no experience. She's never directed, she's never produced, she's never written, as far as Hollywood was concerned.
Right.
So that was another big, bold move on John's part, saying, "Hey, by the way, this chick I know, she's going to help me produce and write it. And that's my 3rd term." Irwin said, "Sure. Okay, that sounds easy enough. $10K, your 3 rules. Let me go talk to a guy to gather some money." And that's where Mustafa Akkad came in. Now, a lot of people, if you're a fan of Halloween, more than John Carpenter, more than Donald Pleasance, more than anybody, you're going to see Mustafa Akkad's name presenting Halloween at least 1 through, 8? Before he died?
Yes, 1 through 8.
I think he was in charge of everything up to and including the 8th film.
Right.
So
Yeah, he
he
died in
goes to Mustafa.
2005 as well, I think. 2005 or 2006.
Yeah,
So,
what a hit for Halloween
right,
fans. We lost Deborah Hill and Mustafa.
right.
Um,
And tragically,
yeah,
too, because he
Irwin went
died
to
in,
Mustafa.
I was
That
just going
was
to
a
say,
terrorist attack
the terrorist attack in,
in London or something, right?
no, it was in
Was it London? I know it
Jordan.
was in the UK.
No, it was in
Was it Jordan?
Jordan. Yeah, he was there for a wedding,
Okay,
him and his daughter, and they're both unfortunately were killed.
that's right.
So,
Yeah, yeah. I remember being at work and hearing about that on the radio,
yeah.
which is kind of weird. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
the
like,
radio, the DJ in between songs was just like, "Oh, bad news for the Halloween crowd," and I'm like, "What?"
right.
And yeah, terrorist attack had taken out Mustafa Akkad, and
Mhm.
the thing was, Mustafa, he's a name in the credits. You've seen it at least 8 times, give or take. He was kind of the old guard.
Right.
He's the reason we're talking about any of these films. So Mustafa had the money, and Irwin asked for 300,000, which is kind of funny because Mustafa kind of scoffed at it, like, "That's it? You know,
Right.
that's all you want? That's kind of cheap. What kind of cheap ass movie are you making with 300? It was almost too good to be true. Yeah,
Right.
you're asking me for a pittance when I could give you a big budget.
Right.
He goes, no. What we can do, everything we want to do, 300K if that's cool. Mustafa said, deal. Boom.
Mm,
So as soon as the wheels got turning, Carpenter and Hill got working on the script, and Mustafa had gathered up the money, and somewhere during all this, Irwin, I believe it was Irwin, suggested making the entire film take place on one night. Well, not the entire film, but the majority of the film
mm,
one night. And that was mostly for budget purposes. So we could just use the location and we won't always have to worry about the lighting with day and night and all that, which is one night. And why don't we call it Halloween? And as it had turned out, up to that point, no one had ever named their film Halloween.
yeah. Which I
I
thought
mean,
was
it's a
weird too.
famous holiday. It's a
Hmm.
huge holiday. Yeah, and nobody had capitalized on the name Halloween. Halloween is literally the first film ever to be named Halloween. So
Right.
it was no
I think
longer the
even have
babysitter murders.
Halloween in the title, right?
That's what I mean. Like no movie
Yeah.
was, I don't think Halloween was ever branded for anything. It may have
Right.
been mentioned in passing in
Right.
other films, but no title had Halloween in it. So they changed it from the babysitter murders to Halloween, more or less just to capitalize on the holiday and the fact that it was going to take place on one particular night.
And it was a
And
night where they could kind of legitimately kind of eliminate the adult supervision to a point.
yes,
The
yep,
protections that would be in
exactly.
place. So,
That and what extras there could be. It's nothing to throw a sheet over your producer's kid and have him walk around in a
right.
costume. And
Yeah.
the only thing is you got Haddonfield, which is a fictional Chicago town, and you're in the middle of like Pasadena with palm trees. And there's an infamous story that Tommy Lee Wallace and the production crew had to have dead leaves painted, or at least paint leaves to look dead,
Mm-hmm.
throw them in the road, boom, and then when they were done with the shot, scoop them up into
Scoop
the
all
same
up.
bag and
Yeah.
reuse them over and over.
Right. There's
Absolutely
even
hilarious. And yeah,
Jamie Lee Curtis says that she was involved in the leaf collection, just to
yes.
get things going. The
And
big
that just
star
proves
Jamie
how
Lee
indie the
Curtis.
film is too. That was
Yeah.
it was her first major role, and she's running lights, she's pulling cable. This is guerrilla filmmaking. This is just we got to do this on the go, and nobody's getting paid a whole lot for this. You know what I mean?
No.
So that shows again what we were talking about earlier about just how you know how hard some of this work really is that goes into movies that we take for granted 40 something years later.
Right. Right.
So that was pretty much how that got started. I do know that somewhere around there, John had to step away for a little bit because he was already contractually obligated to do a TV movie called Somebody's Watching Me.
Mm-hmm.
This premiered on, I think, ABC Sunday Night Movie kind of deal, and it was sort of a reverse Rear Window with Lauren Hutton and Adrienne Barbeau, who would be a co-star in future Carpenter films.
Right.
And while he was off doing that, Deborah Hill did her first pass on the script, when he finished, he came back, went over it, and did his pass on the script. And the rest is history. They were ready for production.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Um. Yeah. When you say indie, I mean this was. Well, I guess not really, because Texas Chainsaw would probably qualify as the first true big success independent film. But again,
sure.
Halloween did it at a time when it's like it was the lightning strike that started the wildfire that came after. Even though it wasn't the only
Yeah.
lightning strike, it was the first that really, it's the one that started the fire. Uh, as far as
Well, it
independent
proved
films,
beyond
and
a shadow
then
of a doubt.
yeah,
Well, even something like Texas Chainsaw, one of the things that makes Halloween stand apart is Texas Chainsaw, Psycho, movies of that ilk at the time were in weird, dusty, side of the road, isolation. The hills have eyes, all this.
right,
These were movies where you would really have to kind of go out of your way to be caught in a situation where these backwoods psychos are going to grab a hold of you. Halloween was your neighborhood. It was my neighborhood. This is, middle to upper class suburbia, and this guy's walking around stabbing people. And anybody can relate to hearing something outside and looking out into the darkness of your yard and being like, I swear someone's out there.
mm-hmm.
You know, you don't even have to go on a awful family vacation or have a car break down on the side of the road to be stuck at the hands of some psycho. This was just someone who lived in your neighborhood and snapped and is back in your neighborhood now, and nobody's really paying attention because either your porch is dark because you're not handing out candy, or strangers out in the road are no big deal because you're handing out candy. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's a very safe environment,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all things considered, and not the kind of place where something like what happens in Halloween happens.
Right.
So people were leaving the theater when this came out, checking behind their, the back seat of their car, and there's a story my mom told me long before I seen Halloween, where she had saw it at the theater. I think with my dad. I think they were dating at the time, and every single night when she used to work midnights, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and she said there for the rest of her life to this day she doesn't get in the car without looking in the back seat because of what happens to Annie Brackett.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's the equivalent of seeing Jaws and never wanting to get in the water again.
Right.
It
Or the shower
imprints
scene.
inside. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those deals where only a few movies will ever imprint a habit on you out of fear. And I check the back seat of my car all the time because my mom did. It just seemed like a good idea. But there are movies that have left a habitual routine in me because of something I saw in it that's not going to happen to me. I'm not
Right.
going to get into my car and suddenly notice that the windows are fogged up, because someone's been in the back seat waiting for me. And that's what Halloween did, and it was brilliant. It really caught an entire nation off guard. But that was after it was released. Literally, it came out, premiered in Kansas City, Halloween week, 1978, to a pretty chilly opening. It
Mm-hmm.
was next to nobody. So its opening weekend in one city was pretty poor. And nowadays, that's a death knell. That's it. Your little indie movie had its shot. Nobody came to see it. Bye bye.
Right.
But back then, those few people left the theater, told everyone they knew, and they say by the next weekend, the line was around the block. Based on the success of that following weekend, they farm it out to a few more showings, a few other cities. The lines are around the block. Now newspapers are getting a hold of it and critics are talking about it. Now it's nationwide and it's selling out.
Mm-hmm.
That type of groundswell doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Probably
It's
the
not
closest
given
I
an
can think
opportunity.
is Right, it's never given an opportunity. And I would say probably the last movie I can think of that had anything remotely like that was probably the first Paranormal Activity. And that
Yeah,
was a lot to do with kind of an internet groundswell where people were posting online, what the hell is this movie? I've never heard of anything
right.
like this. Is this real? Is this real footage? Blah, blah, blah. And that really kind of reinvigorated the found footage subgenre, but it was a big deal. It got people talking about something that probably could have just floated by without a second thought.
Mm.
And Halloween snowballed into something massive. And by the time it reached overseas, it had actually crossed the ocean and made $60 million worldwide. Little
Wow.
indie movie made
Mm.
60 million. This
Yeah.
is from a $300,000 budget, and it became the highest grossing independent film of all time, clear up until 1990 when New Worlds or New Lines Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out.
Wow.
Teenage
So
Mutant Ninja Turtles is what dethroned Halloween.
I guess we should put, maybe it was wasn't it, didn't it turn out to be like $310,000 budget?
It was 320, I
320.
believe,
Okay.
because of Donald Pleasance.
Right. Right. So
The extra money went to casting Donald Pleasance, who I believe Carpenter had tried to court Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing
right.
into playing Dr. Loomis, and both of them declined. And I think Christopher Lee even famously have said he regrets it every day.
Right.
He was just like he wishes he had said yes, but they went to Yablans. The producer Yablans had suggested to John, why don't you talk to Donald Pleasance, and for an additional 20K, again only bumping it up 20K from 300,000. Donald came on board, and he wasn't really sure what he was doing there. The script didn't really grab him. He knew his daughter loved horror movies,
And
but
Assault
he
on
liked
Precinct
John.
13.
Yeah, he did enjoy Assault on Precinct
Yeah.
13, and he liked John's work ethic. He liked John's vision, and he trusted him.
Right.
And that kind of built a friendship that would last, what, almost
Forever.
a half dozen extra films.
Right.
Donald
Right.
Pleasance showed up in plenty of other Carpenter films,
Yep.
but most importantly, uh, almost as much so as Mustafa Akkad, Donald was another old guard.
Yeah.
If they were making a Halloween film and they wanted him, he
He
was
was
there.
there. Right.
And he
Well, it was
played
almost not even a question.
Loomis for what? Right. It was
Yeah.
just, this is my character. This is what you want me to do. I'm there. And
Right.
he respected the part and the franchise that much that he came back 4 more times before
Right.
his death in '95.
Well,
So Donald Pleasance and
and
Mustafa Akkad really were just, they were the ones holding up this franchise
mm,
long after the success of this film. And
yeah.
it's really cool, kind of a testament, especially being someone like Donald Pleasance who'd worked in, he'd been in James Bond films and
No.
old British royalty type film. He was an esteemed actor. He
Right.
was no slouch, and
No.
he came over here and was like, yeah, just tell me what to do. It's cool, and
Yeah. He did say
from all,
he adjusted some of the dialogue because he didn't quite get the
a little
dialogue a little
bit.
bit, but
He didn't really at the time, at least of this one, he didn't really get Loomis's obsession and why he was
mm,
so dramatic about it, but he understood that that was the part, and once he got his mind into that frame, he started making the suggestions. I think based on what you've told me and how I've acted this, Loomis would say this, or Loomis would
right.
react that way, and he and John had a pretty good symbiotic relationship
I agree.
when it came to
Yeah.
culturing the character of Dr. Loomis,
Yeah.
who of course is named after a character in Psycho,
Right. Sam
Sam
Loomis,
Loomis.
Marion
Yep.
Crane's love interest there. Here,
Hmm.
why don't we do this? Why don't we show the trailer right now? Because I think we can, and
All right,
they'll give us a chance to take a little break. Here's the trailer for y'all.
cool.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Michael?
Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. I think he'll come back.
Exploring uncharted territory.
And totally charted.
Just talk.
Sure. The only reason she babysits is to have
Halloween.
Okay, come on out.
Halloween. The night he came home.
So there you go. That was the trailer for Halloween from 1978.
Yep.
You know, it's there's something about old school trailers for me that I don't know. There's trailers now. I enjoy watching them. They've got them on YouTube whenever a new movie's coming out. I want to see the new trailer, but there's nothing better than a 1980s, late 70s, early 80s horror movie trailer, in my opinion.
I agree. To a degree, they're almost full of spoilers.
They are
Sometimes.
too much for sure.
More so, I would say the Friday the 13th trailers literally are just like, that person's dead, this person's dead, you know.
Right.
So you're just going to the theater more or less to see how their death plays out because
Right.
you know that person's dead. You know, I think one of the best worst trailers I've ever seen, believe it or not, is for The Godfather.
Really?
The Godfather literally shows some major plot spoilers that you just. I understand they're trying to sell the movie. I understand seeing people getting lit up with Tommy guns is probably a good way to get that crowd in there. But when you see the movie and you reflect on the trailer you watched, you're like, well, now I know how that's going to happen. Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You know,
you see
I remember
Sonny.
watching the trailer for Godfather. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, man. That's such a crucial moment of the film. So yeah, there's some trailers that they really just left nothing to chance and was just like, go see our movie. This is in it, you know.
Right.
And it's funny to me, you know. So I definitely I enjoy the trailers as much as you, just because of how shameless they are in promoting the film.
Well, there's an eeriness to them all that's, you know, with the, you know, the narrator and everything else. It's just, I don't know, there's
between the narration, which is all gone nowadays.
Absolutely.
They don't narrate trailers ever anymore.
No, they don't.
But the fact that even on Blu-ray and DVD, they don't clean up the trailers either. So you still have the hiss and pop of the soundtrack, and it looks kind of shitty. And that's, to me, that kind of preserves a window in time. So it's kind of cool that they don't tamper with trailers that much.
Right.
But I believe in that trailer you did get a fairly decent look at Myers' mask, correct?
I believe so. Yeah. We didn't actually watch it. It's in there.
Right. We've seen it.
Yeah, we've seen it. But we didn't just sit and watch it.
That's for you.
That's for you. Yep.
That's for you, the audience. You know, that's for you to check it out. It's pretty fairly common knowledge now, I think, that the Michael Myers mask, the prototype, the original mask, is a modified Don Post William Shatner mask from Star Trek. It's a Captain Kirk mask. It was teased out and spray painted, and a lot of people know that. And if you didn't, it's just a fun fact. Captain Kirk is Michael Myers.
Right.
A lot of people.
It's funny how just removing the sideburns off of the mask made such a difference in terms of
it did
how it looks, where you can see when you know it. Once you know it's a William Shatner mask, you say, "Oh yeah, I see it now." But if no one tells you that, you may not notice it.
Right, and I always laugh at the thought that they talk about how the mask is like a blank visage. It's emotionless and pale, and there's nothing to it. And I'm sitting here thinking, just like William Shatner. Wow.
Well, I'm a Shatner apologist for his acting in terms of not so much on the show, the original series show, but in the films.
If you were Shatner, though, and you're hearing the description of how creepy this mask is, you're like, fuck you. No, it's just funny to me that, this Captain Kirk mask just scared the shit out of everybody.
Right.
Did you know, though, that it came down to Captain Kirk and an early Don Post, another Don Post. Don Post was just the staple for good masks, but it was an Emmett Kelly mask. Were you aware of that, Emmett Kelly?
Yeah, the sad clown.
For those who don't know, exactly. For those who don't know, Emmett Kelly was a Kansas-born circus performer, and he created, I believe, the sad clown.
We'll throw a picture up for the audience to see. So.
And Emmett Kelly, it was a character he created called Weary Willie. And if you've ever seen a clown in shabby hobo clothes and the long bad face and kind of a shitty hat and all this, that was created by Emmett Kelly. And he was famous. He was world famous. And the mask, in the context of being a psychotic murderer running around with a knife, would have been very chilling, I think.
Right. Well, that image, that Emmett Kelly image, is kind of spooky looking.
It is. I mean, I'm
fair,
personally, I'm someone who thinks all clowns are creepy. I've never found them entertaining or funny, but it does put a different vibe on Emmett Kelly, I suppose, who was beloved. This guy, he's someone who risked his life to save people during the horrific Hartford Circus fire of 1944. There's pictures of him running with buckets trying to put this thing out, where people were burning alive under the big top. And so even aside from being the sad clown, he also kind of gained another weird sense of morbid curiosity, because he bore witness to arguably the biggest tragedy a circus ever had. Right. And there's pictures of him, like I said, running around with buckets, and literally, not just, he's in the clown makeup and looks as distraught, more so even, than his character. So there's something very tragic to the Emmett Kelly mask that probably would have brought something different, still scary, but something certainly different to the Michael Myers persona. But they said that they tried it creeped everybody out. They were like, that's an awesome mask. And then these masks were done by Tommy Lee Wallace, by the way, the production designer and a friend of John Carpenter. When he brought out what he did to the Captain Kirk mask, which, like you said, was really just teasing and spray painting the hair. He hollowed out the eyes, took away the sideburns, and spray painted it white. They said that a very distinct chill fell over the room when he wore that. And that was, it became the mask from that point on.
It's a very different spook factor, really.
It is. And I don't think that the film's fright factor would have suffered with an Emmett Kelly mask.
No,
but
I don't think it would have been as iconic, though, in the grand scheme.
Exactly. I don't think so either. And I think a lot of people would have aped the clown look for other movies, just like they aped so many other things from this film. But you really can't fuck with the Kirk mask.
Right.
And it became as important to the image of Halloween as the pins and Pinhead for Hellraiser. It's
Or Freddy's
iconic. It's the
glove.
hat
Yeah.
Freddy wears, or
Yeah.
the hockey mask. It's immediately recognizable. Whereas Emmett Kelly may have just kind of gone down as another creepy clown, you know, and which is in a way kind of tragic to the memory of Emmett Kelly.
Yeah.
But
I was going to point out, if you look closely, the Emmett Kelly, not the full Emmett Kelly, but the Emmett Kelly like vibe is used in the clown masks in The Dark Knight at the beginning of the movie.
yes,
So it has been used, and it has been used in a way that's slightly on the more
Insidious.
terrifying side. Insidious, exactly.
Sure.
So
yeah. So yeah, it did kind of go down as a semi-famous creepy mask.
right.
But it really was just some guy. He was just a clown, and that was his shtick. You know, the bummer. He was the Debbie Downer of the clown world, and
Right.
that he could very well have been the face of Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I want to say we've talked about it before, but one of the things that I like personally about Halloween is the ambiguity that the movie has regarding Michael's motives, his inhuman abilities, and a lot of this was it was purposely left a mystery because evil shouldn't have a reason.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. He's not a person. He's a shape, as he's
a shape, and he's called the shape, and he's not. You know, he shouldn't have a rhyme or reason. That's in part to make him scarier. And subsequent sequels would do various things to humanize him or explain why he is what he is.
Yeah, his
but
powers. Yeah.
One of the only theories that I kind of subscribe to and I actually enjoy was when the novelization came out a year later, October of '79. Have you ever read the novelization of Halloween?
No, I'm familiar with. No, I never read that one. I read the second and the fourth one.
Okay.
The
all equally rare, by the way.
Exactly. Oh,
I personally don't have a copy.
I had a copy of both of those. And my copy of 4 was original. I didn't buy it in the used bookstore. I had it original. And I don't know if you've ever looked on Amazon to see what it's going for, or eBay.
They're outrageous.
$400. I paid $4.99. Yeah, I paid $4.99 for it at Meyer, the Meyer book department.
Yeah.
And and $400, and that's for the original. I don't know how much.
400 bones for a paperback.
For a paperback,
you know,
book.
Essentially, it's a pocket book. You know, it's and all of them are. And the thing was, this was released a year after the film had come out, which is kind of odd because usually, for the most part, with movie tie-in novels, they want it to come out at least just before or just after the film to capitalize on the success. But again, nobody knew this movie was going to be the success that it was. So an author named Richard Curtis, who wrote the book under the pseudonym Curtis Richards, he novelized Halloween a year later, and he gave a pretty decent epilogue, or a prologue, I should say, into what may or may not have gotten into Michael the night he killed his sister. And part of that was the idea that his urge to kill is due to, in a way, demonic possession. They claim that he was possessed by the spirit of Samhain, which is a Gaelic festival that marks the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. And what he did in the book was sort of personify Samhain. And I just recently learned it's actually pronounced Samhain. I've been calling it Sam Hain for decades, like an asshole, I guess.
You and most Americans, even
millions of others, I'm sure. Yeah, but I found out it's Samhain.
Yeah. To be fair, even Donald Pleasance says Sam Hain in Halloween 2.
He does, yeah. So, and I found out it's Samhain, and I'm like, oh well, I've been trampling all over this Gaelic word for God knows how long. But again, like you said, it's probably a common misconception. But Samhain isn't a spirit; it's a festival. It's not the Lord of the Dead or whatever. and it's just a festival to celebrate the end of the harvest season. But what Richard Curtis did was he personified it as if it was a demon or a mood that was cursed in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what it was in this prologue to Halloween, this hateful, savage feeling existed in a medieval time, and there was a deformed man named Enda who was at the Samhain festival. Everyone's having fun, everyone's drinking, and he approaches a druid princess and asks for her hand in marriage. Now, he's deformed, he knows he's deformed, he knows there's probably not much chance, but he goes for it. And she mocks him and even sort of shuns him as a potential rapist. And she really kind of goes over the top about it, and the rest of the commoners at this festival laugh at him and mock him, and Enda winds up just kind of brooding in a corner while everyone's having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And the rumor is that the spirit of Samhain possessed him to the point where he grabbed a massive butcher knife, walked right onto the dance floor, and stabbed the princess and her would-be suitor to death in front of everybody before the crowd intervenes and literally tears him to pieces, burying his parts in a place called the Hill of Fiends, where his spirit was cursed by shamans.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what that suggested was that Enda was the first victim of Samhain, and that once he was dead, the cursed spirit lived on. And when we get to like chapter 1 of the book, Michael, who's a normal kid, picked out his own costume, wanted to go out as a clown. He's hanging out at his grandmother's house, and he's talking about trick-or-treating, and his grandma notices that he's exhibiting odd behavior. He's not acting like the sweet, lovable Michael she knows. And somewhere it suggested that her husband, his grandfather, exhibited this strange behavior around Halloween before he passed away. And obviously that night, Michael goes full Samhain, I suppose, and never changes back. So the book kind of gives him a normal childhood up to, what was he, 6, 7?
Yeah, he was 6. Mm-hmm.
He's 6, right?
Yep.
So he's just a normal kid, and there's no hint that he's being bullied or abused or anything. He just suddenly snaps.
Right. Now, wasn't the that character, the ancient character that was possessed, wasn't he an ancestor?
Enda, yeah.
Wasn't he an ancestor of the Myers?
I don't think they made that type of link, but they certainly made it sound like he was the first to be possessed by this Celtic spirit.
Okay.
And his murderous rage would last over generations and hop from person to person. And it would make sense that he was an ancient ancestor, because if it was passed down from Michael's grandfather to Michael, it would suggest that that was the case. I'm not sure if it ever explicitly said that, but maybe I just missed it. You know.
Yeah,
but,
I like I said, I didn't read that one, but for some reason I thought that was in there. So.
That to me is a lot more sensible and creepy than giving him a Law and Order SVU kind of backstory. I don't need to know that he was molded into a murderer by life for him to be scary. I think it's much scarier to not know, or if you do know, hereditary.
Right.
You know, a weird hereditary gene or spirit from.
Well, and
you know,
you're right. That's the thing I was going to say. I would prefer it to be a supernatural thing than you know, my mom's a stripper and a whore. You know,
right.
To go to that remake of Halloween. So
the Rob Zombie one, and that's the thing. The sequels do take a cue from that original novelization, because
especially
eventually you
6.
get to a point where druids. Yeah, parts 5 and 6 are both very druid friendly in that regard. You know,
Right.
they kind of, the fifth one sort of teases a druid connection, and the sixth one goes balls out.
Right.
So it actually leads us to the next section I wanted to talk about, the series as a whole. Okay.
Right.
Now, anybody, any diehard fan of any horror film knows that once you've gone past at least the trilogy mark, it becomes questionable how well people have kept the keys. Halloween is really no exception.
Right.
After the first one, you literally, with what's out there, can choose your own adventure, like those books we had as kids.
Right.
What happens at the end of this one? You could choose this way or you could choose that way.
Which is how I watch them, by the way. I'll do like little marathons
Do
where
you
I'll
watch them at
in certain orders based
certain
on
saga?
my mood. Yep, exactly.
Yep. I personally, I was able to, I kind of sat down and looked at them all, and I was able to break it down into 6 solid sagas.
Okay. I have to think about
and
how
maybe
many.
that's
I'll
maybe
tell
that's
you what.
apropos.
Yeah, I'll tell you what my groups are, because I don't know how many there are. I have
Okay.
to think about it. But you go ahead. You can
And
continue.
I'm sure that there's names for these. I'm sure that somebody came up with their own timelines and whatnot.
Mhm.
I kind of tagged my own name to it when I describe them to people. The first one I call it the purist saga. That is basically the most straightforward way you could do it. You basically just watch them all in the order that they were released, remakes and all, and decide for yourself which plot you like best. And I think that's how most horror fans go anyway. They just go down the line when they're at the video store. I'm just going to watch 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
So that's the way to do it. That's the all-encompassing way. It's the way I would suggest personally. If you're a newbie and you enjoyed this first movie, if you want to continue it, just watch them all. Just, good or bad, go through and decide for yourself which one you like best. Second, I have the sibling saga. That's the one I call the sibling saga. You watch the 4 original films that detail Laurie's encounters with Michael, starting with this one, Halloween, on through Halloween 2, where she, spoiler alert, finds out Michael's her sister. And then you jump ahead to Halloween H2O and finally Halloween Resurrection, which are parts 7 and 8 respectively. And that ends a 4-part story arc where Michael is battling and stalking his sister, Laurie Strode. Those 4 movies are all interconnected and don't really acknowledge anything that comes before or after them.
Right.
Okay, so that's 2. The binary saga. This is what I call, it's basically after this film, if you were to watch Halloween and you just assume that the story's over like Carpenter and Hill had intended, you would jump just to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and just to simply enjoy 2 Halloween films completely unrelated and pretend the saga went down sort of the anthology road that Carpenter, Hill, and Tommy Lee Wallace originally intended. Because to them and everyone else, for all intents and purposes, after this film, the Michael Myers story is over. They didn't plan on doing a part 2 through whatever, and they kind of wanted to release Halloween films every year with a different monster. So to me, in what I called the binary saga, you watch this and then Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and that's your series. That's your 1-2 punch. The 4th, I call the Jamie and Loomis trilogy. These would be the ones that consist of Halloween 4, 5, and 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Basically what happens is we continue after the events of part 2, where Loomis and Michael survived the ending of that film. And Laurie had a daughter named Jamie, played by Danielle Harris, who was given up into foster care. And from there, Michael goes on a rampage through Haddonfield to kill his niece and end his bloodline, essentially. And of course, Loomis being back, he's trying to stop him along the way. And as we mentioned, the 5th film is where we start linking into things like telepathy and conspiracy and druid cults, and all of that crosses into the 6th film, where that trilogy concludes.
Right.
The 5th one I call the Rob Zombie saga. That's where if you watch this film and you thought The Exorcise and Subtlety and Mood were a little too tame for you, you wanted something a little trashier and gorier, and dare I say it, maybe a little rapey, Look no
A
further.
little?
Rob Zombie's remake.
Right.
Rob Zombie's remake and sequel are. He's basically turned Michael into a raging monster. He's turned evil by a bad childhood filled with domestic abuse and bullying. And Lori and her friends, they're all constantly horny. Basically, they're all three the same character. There's really no distinction between Lori and her friends in this version. And
Yeah,
Dr.
I
Loomis,
could agree with that.
yeah, and Dr. Loomis, played by Malcolm McDowell, he's more of just kind of an embittered quack in this one. He kind of wanted to just kind of make a few
he
bucks
comes
off.
off kind of sleazy to me.
He does, and I feel like the savagery that Michael portrays in those movies in particular, he's willing to make a buck off of the exploitation
Right.
of this killer. And it's the whole dynamic of the Halloween saga up to that point. Whether you're a fan of the old one or not, it's drastically different. So it definitely has its fans, it definitely has its detractors. But if you're looking for something far different than the previous sagas that we just spoke about, they don't get much different than that. So
Right.
Rob Zombie definitely took a unique spin with his two movies. And then lastly, the sixth and final saga, I couldn't really think of a clever name for it, so I called it the PTSD saga. Basically, we pretend after this,
yeah,
because what else am I going to call it? The sibling saga too, because there's no sibling connection in this series now. Basically, we pretend that Michael was incarcerated the night after this film, way back in '78, and Laurie was so traumatized by the encounter that she kind of turns into a survivalist and an alcoholic, and she's got major PTSD and has pretty much alienated her entire family, right down to her grandkid. Right. And when Michael escapes, she's kind of got to come out from her hiding place off the grid and protect her family from the thing that's kept her hidden for so long. And that would be Halloween 2018. Right. It's just called Halloween, and it serves as a direct sequel to the original film in much the same way that Texas Chainsaw 3D was for the Texas Chainsaw movies. It picks up right where the original left off, and nothing we've seen up to that point technically exists, and it's the beginning of a whole new trilogy that continues with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, all produced by Blumhouse Pictures, which as of this recording, we could have already seen Halloween Kills, but COVID sort of fucked that up for us, and it's been bumped to 2021.
I've cried many tears over that, for the record.
Me too, and I was really looking forward to it, but them's the breaks for a lot of movies right now, so I'll be patient and I'll finish up. Basically, that's what it comes down to at this point. That's the 6 different timelines.
Yeah. Let me go through mine then, real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, there's the standalone Halloween number 1, one and done. Oh, so that's one storyline. Yep. Second storyline is Halloween 1, Halloween 2. One storyline.
Okay.
The one, they're 2 and done. Halloween 3 is completely separate. I mean, I love it. I love that movie, but I don't really. I've tried to kind of incorporate it because I think there has been room for it to maybe be brought back into canon to a degree, through like the Druid stuff. But I can't reconcile my brain around the whole him seeing Halloween being advertised on the television.
That's the thing. It would be like a meta sequel,
exactly.
In that regard.
So I see it as its own thing. It's a Halloween movie that it doesn't matter which saga I go with, I can watch it whenever I want. So it's
absolutely, and that was the intent,
right?
So it was supposed to be the beginning of a whole anthology of different Halloween movies.
Right. So for all intents and purposes, that one's not part of my saga group. So you got the first one by itself, the first and second one by themselves. Then I've got what I call the sibling trilogy.
Sure.
Because it's 1 and 2 and H2O.
Yeah.
There's no resurrection. Resurrection is excluded from the canon in my mind for just being bad movie.
Okay.
Don't like it.
So that one's out based on principle and not because
Based
of
on-
continuity.
Exactly.
Okay.
Although continuity too,
Fair
it just
enough.
doesn't work. I
Sure.
think if you watch 1, 2, and H2O as a trilogy, it's a beautiful trilogy because it's beginning, middle, and end, and it
And a
works.
definitive ending.
A definitive
if
ending,
you stop
exactly.
there.
Excuse me. Then there's my I call it the guilty pleasure, but it's really the Thorn series, and that's 1, 2,
Yeah.
4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
And that to me, I know it's hard to reconcile the first two with all that druid stuff because it's not in the films, but as a kid, as a 9, 10-year-old, well, I would have to say 10, 11, 12-year-old, once Halloween 5 came out, that was it. We didn't have another Halloween for 6 years after that. So that was
True.
my Halloween. It was 1, 2, 4, and 5. I had those 4 films. And then when 6
Which
came
isn't
out,
bad.
no, it's I love 4, 5, and 6. I even love 5, and I know everyone hates 5, but
Mhm.
I love 5 for different reasons than people hate it for. So yeah, so I've got the Curse saga or the Thorn saga.
Okay.
So there's that 3. Yeah, 3 sagas.
Yeah.
The Rob Zombie ones, I don't count them as Halloween films. They're if you take out the Halloween elements of it, the Carpenter Halloween elements of it, they're fine movies.
They're just
Standalone.
slasher flicks.
They're just slasher
Yeah.
flicks. They're Rob Zombie's version of slasher films.
Yeah.
And as far as the sequel goes, I know a lot of people shit on the sequel of that, and I don't like it as much as I like the first one, but I like how, because you pointed out that the 3 girls in his remake are essentially the same character. That's
They're
not
kind
the
of
case.
interchangeable.
Yeah, and that's not the case in the second one. He really was able. I don't know if he did it by accident or if it was intended, or it could have been Danielle Harris's performance too. But her character,
Which was great,
was just awesomely written for the second one.
everything to me, the events in the second one that have to do with the brackets,
Yeah,
Annie and her sheriff father, are
It's
the
very
saving
well
grace
written. Yes,
of
absolutely.
that particular film. And the other thing that I give it, because I don't want to go into too much detail in my opinion of those films
Right.
until we get to them, but I do have to say that there's something to be said for Rob making a Halloween movie that's not a remake. He was remaking the first one,
Right.
and he could have remade Halloween 2
Right.
and just done a hospital film, but he teases that and then goes
Yeah.
he goes in his own direction and makes an original Halloween film.
Right. That's
that
why
we
I don't like
can't
to shit on it.
compare to any other sequels.
Right. That's why I don't like to shit on it.
There's nothing in the second one that makes me go, oh, he fucked up that scene, or he screwed this up, or screwed. No, I mean, if I have any gripes with it, it's based on its own merit.
Exactly. To me, it's how he wrote Laurie's character in the second one, opposed to how he wrote Annie's character in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 characters should have been reversed. And again, it could be performance, but the way that Danielle,
Danielle brings it.
Of course. Right. But the way she portrays Annie in the second film with the sympathy and because she suffered just as much trauma, give or take, as Laurie did. But Laurie's a basket case, and you can see that Annie is, she's dealing with it. She's got it all over her face. She's got the scars too. And
yeah.
But she's dealing with it
with the exception of finding out that you're related to the killer.
Right.
For all intents and purposes, her character was dead.
Right.
The fact that she's even in the second one is kind of a leap of faith.
Right.
So we're kind of given a character who shouldn't be there, and she outshines the
main character. Yeah, exactly. And again, like we've said, it could be performance, but I want to give Rob Zombie the benefit of the doubt and say that, whether intentionally or accidentally, he wrote that character beautifully. And again, It helps that you have Brad Dourif playing Sheriff Brackett, who can show the emotion when the time comes for Annie to meet her end.
Just another amazing performance by Dourif in his career, by the
absolutely.
way. I mean,
And well shot. You know, people give Rob Zombie a lot of shit, but he does have an eye for direction.
he does. Yeah.
You know, he just he doesn't have a mind for good horror. He's got a mind for schlocky horror.
For me, it's the writing. He's a better director than he is a writer.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You know, we could go on a whole other episode about that, which we probably will.
Yeah.
But Rob is he's got a much better eye than he does a mouth.
Yes.
For this kind of thing.
That's
you know.
It's all schlock that comes out of his mind and his mouth, but he does have an eye for getting the right shots and in some cases getting the right performance because again he's working with professionals with Danielle Harris and Brad Dourif. So I mean, probably not that much of a stretch to get decent performance.
Especially
but
Harris
George Lucas couldn't get a decent performance out of Sam Jackson. So in the prequels. And we know that Sam Jackson is one of the greats.
That's the thing. When you can watch, he is, and it takes a deft hand, and Rob's got the hand. You know, there's no question there. It's just, will you write characters that I like?
Right. Yeah. So
it comes down to that, you know.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't really watch Rob Zombie's Halloween movies within the Halloween storyline or sagas.
They're not go-tos for me. But
no, if I'm in a Rob Zombie mood, I'll watch them as part of like a Rob Zombie marathon, but I do not watch them as part of the Halloween.
Right.
So for me, I've got
fair enough.
What is that? Where did I leave off with the saga? So I've got 1, 2, 3 sagas, and then there's just a fourth one for me then, which is the newest round, which I call Halloween for 40
years.
Yeah, 40 Years of Terror, because from everything, as you said, we should have seen Halloween Kills, but we know it takes place on the same night, a la Halloween.
Yeah.
And I would
at least from the trailer or the teaser that they released a month or two ago.
Well, and there's the trailer, and there's it's for all intents and purposes, at least the second one, Halloween Kills, is taking place the same night, and I'm going to assume that the third one does too. So it really is. If that's the case, then it's something. Yeah. If that's the case, then it's really Halloween 78 to Halloween 2018. So that's 40 years. So it's Halloween 40 Years of Terror.
That's a better title than PTSD Saga.
Well, I mean, it's
I'm gonna amend my notes.
it's simple.
It is.
So that's how I.
But it's a little, you know, my PTSD Saga title. It generalizes a little bit much, but I couldn't come up with anything better. 40 Years of Terror is just that's way better.
To be fair, I love Halloween 2018. I know most people like it, but I actually really love it. The only problem I do have with it is I don't like Laurie is too fucked up for having only experienced the one film. If they, I know they wanted to get rid of the brother sister thing, and I'm okay with that, but just that final chase scene, you know, the anthemic final chase of any movie, but Halloween, you know, from the time that she finds Annie with the tombstone to the point where Myers is shot and falls out the window, is what, 10 minutes? Even in real time? I mean, it couldn't be more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, she spent very little time under his attack.
Yeah, and
you know,
she acts like he tormented her for years in 2018. Now I could see it better if, you know, you've got that 10 minutes and then the 10-15 minutes of Halloween 2 on top of that. Like, he came back for her. He's going to come back for her, whether he's a sibling or not.
Sure.
You know, because I don't.
I mean, with him not speaking, there's no chance or no imaginable way that as he's being cuffed and thrown in the back of a car that he looks at her and goes, "I'll see you soon," or some empty threat that, you know, he's gone. He's literally gone, and at least in this timeline, this multiverse, incarcerated for 40 years. I would probably attribute more of her trauma to stumbling around a house and finding corpses of all of her friends versus the actual attack he gave her. Not to discredit being stabbed in the arm and thrown down the stairs and strangled, it was scary.
Right.
It's absolutely scary. But, the survivalist aspect where she kind of turns into kind of a backwoods Ted Nugent. It's
right.
you could suspend your disbelief and say, yeah,
Which I
whatever.
do.
But at the same time, to play devil's advocate here, I think the movie and her performance in general is speaking more to trauma victims.
It is. Which she even brought
there's
up,
more, there's more going on here than just picking up a part 40 years later and saying, yeah, I was so fucked up from Halloween. No, there's a lot more going on and a lot more people coming forward about certain things, certain unspeakable things that have happened to them that this movie is aimed at.
Right.
And
well, and to be fair to your point, and as I'm thinking about it, I guess it's difficult for me to quantify trauma as it stands, as we understand it now in 2020, 2018. Because I mean, I guess you could equate what I said about, well, it was only 10 minutes even in real time. You could almost, it'd be like saying, well, you were only raped once.
I know. And
it can come off as snarky. I guess I didn't really see that when I said it, but
it could,
after the fact.
It could sound tone deaf, and it's definitely a very valid point. So, it's an attack is an attack. And even though I think we talk about it casually because it is in the realm of fiction, but the fact is, when Halloween 2018 came out, a lot was going on. And I think the movie was speaking to that, and that's why I kind of give her trauma a lot more credence than jumping ahead 20 years and her just being a teacher who went through a bad time.
Right.
So, but that's why I like that you have so many different multiverse or timelines to choose from, because you could say that her attack in 78 wasn't so bad and she was shook, but she moved on and now she's a mom of a son and leads a relatively decent life, maybe a little more guarded than she once was, and if that's the case, you want to follow that timeline, that's great. But if you're someone who has suffered at the hands of somebody and the end of Halloween does shake you, maybe the PTSD 40 Years of Terror saga is a little more real and it speaks a little more to you. Right. And that would be why you could very easily choose that path versus the other one. And the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis owns that role in two different universes, in a way, you do get the best of both worlds. She's either a survivor who put it behind her or a survivor who let it consume her, and it's kind of cool to have that option.
Right. Well, and in the
not
realm
many
of this,
horror series will give you that.
Right. And in the realm of 2018, it's obviously it's a trauma that consumed her, but it doesn't matter because she was right in the end. For what it's worth. Even though it wasn't
at the very
her that let him out or anything,
least, but she became Loomis.
Right. That's kind of what I'm hoping for going forward.
Best case scenario, she became the obsessive that Loomis was, who saw evil for what it was and knows that it needs to be put down.
Right. Because that's what's been missing in my mind in terms of the Halloween films post 1995 is Loomis.
Sure.
Even when we had McDowell's Loomis, we didn't have Loomis. But even a Loomis character, I would have been okay with Sartain being the new Loomis, as he's called in the film. Yeah. Not that he really was. I never felt him to be that character, and obviously he turns out not to be at all. But
right.
But I think I miss there being a Loomis character.
Me too. Me too. So. But I think she'll wave that flag for these next couple movies. That's my guess. And her granddaughter will be the new Laurie.
Theoretically, yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah. If she
So,
doesn't die.
well, I get correct. Yeah.
Right. So,
So I guess before we wrap up, should we do our public service and talk about which of the
yeah, absolutely.
minutia of Halloween releases
Yep.
you should pick up?
Right.
Basically, this time of year, if you're movie hunting, and I know nobody's really shopping, we're not really raiding Best Buy, or basically because of COVID, we're not running around Myers and Kmart and Best Buy looking for movies right now like we usually are. But if you were, there's Halloween. It's out there. It's been released dozens and dozens and dozens of times in different versions. And me being the stickler that I am, I want the best of the best every time. I try to shop in a way that says I'm not going to buy this movie ever again.
Right.
Now, granted, we're talking to a guy who still has a VHS tape of Halloween. There's certain movies I'll double dip. I'll triple dip even. I don't care. Halloween's one
Halloween,
of them.
Halloween, you probably I don't know. What's 10? Deca dipped? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only other movie that I've collected as ardently as Halloween is probably either the Friday the 13th movies or Creepshow.
Right.
I've bought every copy.
And for me, it'd be Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street.
Sure. Yeah. I think even that I've got 2 different box sets in this room somewhere.
Right.
But I've double dipped, and Halloween, unfortunately, because of rights issues and whatnot, it gets released and re-released ad nauseum. That said, I would say in 2013, Scream Factory teamed up with Anchor Bay and Dimension Films, and put together this beauty right here.
Yep.
This is the Halloween Deluxe Collector's Limited Edition. It came with every Halloween movie up to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And obviously for time, we've already got a feat-length podcast going here.
Right.
So, we definitely just want to focus on the one. So we do have the original Halloween on Blu-ray. This is a 2-disc set that came with the box, which is unfortunately out of print and goes for hundreds of dollars online. Right. But the good news is you can technically get at least this a couple of different ways. First of all, disc 1 in this set is a 35th anniversary HD remaster that was approved by cinematographer Dean Cundy. That, I believe, is the one that you have.
Yeah, I've got the 4K transfer.
Yes. Yep. And that's literally the first disc minus one thing. Okay. So I'm going to go through the bonus features on that, and we'll move on. But yeah, if you can find the 4K copy that Ian has there, you've already got half of what.
Right, and this is very easy to find. I got this at Best Buy.
Yeah,
I want to say I paid like $12 for it, 12 or $15 for it. It was on sale.
Right.
But it is a little bare bones as far as special features goes.
Right, which I'll go into right now. The bonus features on this one, if I started, I would go with the first audio commentary with John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis. This was recorded for the 35th anniversary digibook, which is what you have, from 2013. Came out the same year as this box set, I believe. I'm pretty sure this box set was 2013 and 2014. Sorry.
Okay.
So the year prior to this box set was when that Blu-ray you have came out. And the commentary, like all of John's commentaries, it's a lot of fun. He just sits and watches the movie and comments on it. And Jamie Lee Curtis, it sounds almost like she's watching it for the first time. They share a lot of stories. So some of it's pretty technical, but there's a lot of set anecdotes and stuff. And what's really great is Curtis, who has gone on to say many times that she is not a fan of horror films, no matter how many she's been in. She's basically reliving the film as if she'd never seen it, because she's jumping and screaming and laughing, and she's just having a blast, and it's really amusing to listen to, and even John's having a blast with it. And But basically, it's a different tone from a commentary they recorded almost 20 years prior, which I'll get to. But it's fun hearing them reacquaint. They give the late Deborah Hill her due in the commentary and talk about what she contributed to, and then get into cute little arguments about who remembers what. It's fun. It's a good commentary and very insightful. Now the second commentary, which I think you said wasn't on that disc.
Yeah, I just have the
there's
one commentary on this one.
Yeah, which I found was kind of funny. This one, it actually does include a second commentary with director of photography Dean Cundy, editor, production designer Tommy Lee Wallace, and actor Nick Castle, who played Michael for the lion's share of the film. Their commentaries are way more technical. It's a lot more for the filmmakers out there who want to know the secrets behind the movie. Obviously, Cundy's a genius. He tells you all kinds of cool tips and tricks for lighting and some of the things he did for the film, particularly during the finale. But, lighting, they joke around.
Lighting in that movie is almost another character, honestly.
It is, and you get all those secrets. It's really cool. And him and Tommy kind of talk about the state of horror today, and they kind of make fun of a few of the goofs in the film. And of course, you get to hear Wallace talk about how he made the mask. He's funny when he does chime in, but Nick Castle is kind of sparse. He's a quiet guy. He does tell some insightful stories and kind of gives a wink and a nudge towards being the Marlon Brando of costume acting. But Cundy and Wallace definitely steer that commentary. So it's good if you really want to learn stuff about the making of the film.
Right.
Next, there's about an hour-long documentary called The Night She Came Home.
Which I do have on this.
Yes, that's on your copy. John Marsh and Kelly Curtis, who's Jamie Lee's sister, they worked with Horror's Hallowed Grounds creator and talent agent Sean Clark. They made this documentary back in 2012. This was an exclusive to this edition that you have. It showcases Jamie Lee Curtis's first and I believe only convention appearance at Horror Hound Weekend during the fall of 2012. And she did it to coordinate proceeds to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And again, she distanced herself from the horror genre. She doesn't enjoy it. But for someone who kind of poo-poos the genre, I guess you could say, from a distance, she respects it and loves the fans. And it was really great to watch this.
Yeah, she's always said she may not like horror movies, but she's not ashamed that she's been in them, and she's appreciative of what how her career has been as a result of being in them. So, which is as honest as anyone can be, I think.
Exactly, and
better
we've
than
seen
Kevin
a lot
Bacon.
of people who, Kevin or even Lawrence Fishburne. There's a lot of people who kind of, they sort of sweep it under the rug or talk about it kind of sheepishly. And for her, she went to this convention, and again, it was her first one ever, so she really didn't have the type of convention knowledge and know-it-all that like a Tom Savini and all them would have.
Right.
They've been doing it for so many decades. But when you watch this, you could see that she acknowledges this fan base, she respects this fan base and loves them, and she's so gracious and funny and appreciative and wants everybody there, whether they're at her table, getting a signature or at a photo op. She lets everyone know that they're welcomed and that she appreciates it. And one of the coolest parts of that documentary was that her time, anyone who's been to a convention knows that certain people, the table closes, the room closes. She sat and took autographs for every last person who came there because she's just a class act,
Right.
Cool. So that was a very cool thing to see. Everything else is kind of been ported over from various other releases. We've got On Location 25 Years Later. It's about a 10.5-minute featurette that mostly focuses on Deborah Hill. She's being interviewed about the locations and cast, the work that went into the film and everyone on set. And then PJ Souls, who she's one of Jamie's friends in the film. She and her daughter and a friend walk around the old street where the neighborhood was that they shot the film. After that, we have TV version footage, which runs about 11 minutes. That stuff was shot in 1981, I believe, or 1980.
Late 80, yeah. I
To
think.
help, yeah, it was basically NBC needed to fill some gaps in time because the movie was being censored, which is funny
Right.
because aside from some sex,
There's nothing to censor.
there's some fleeting nudity, and I think if you cut it out, you've cut out about a minute and a half of nothing practically.
Right.
But somehow they were going to censor enough that they needed 10 minutes worth roughly of new footage. So John Carpenter came back in during production of Halloween 2, shot this stuff, and there's a television version out there for those of
Right.
us who want to see that. But this, instead of this being the television version, these are just all the additional scenes kind of cobbled together for a bonus feature. And then what rounds out that disc is the trailer that you watched, a few TV spots and radio spots.
Mhm.
That's disc 1, and that's pretty good. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Right.
Disc 2, rounding it out, is it's basically identical to the 25th anniversary Divamax edition.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone remembers that from
I had
years
that
ago.
version
Obviously,
too. I don't anymore, but I did have that version.
now see, the Divamax edition that came out had different features. There's a few things that were the same, but that was released as an exclusive to this box set. This was not released in the subsequent. I think it was released the same day, but there was a 10-disc Halloween collection
Oh,
box
right,
set
right,
from
right.
Scream Factory.
Yeah.
5 discs more are in the deluxe box set that I showed you. This is one of the 5 discs. Basically, this one comes with an audio commentary that was recorded with John Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Deborah Hill back in 1994.
Oh wow.
Recorded for
Well,
a
maybe I didn't have
Criterion
that
Edition
copy then.
Laserdisc.
Maybe I didn't
You
have
what?
that copy. I'm trying to remember
Well,
which copy I had on DVD. I don't remember which one it was.
They basically ported that commentary over to a lot
Okay.
of other releases. So you may have had it, but
Right.
it was recorded in 94.
Okay.
And the unfortunate thing about it is all 3 were sort of recorded separately. So there's no camaraderie. There's no bouncing off of each other's opinions or comments. It's incredibly informative. You learn all kinds of cool stuff, but
And you got Deborah Hill
it's
in
really
there.
just, yes, and that's the big takeaway is Deborah Hill gets to talk about the film. She obviously wasn't around to do anything retrospective for this release, but it's nice to hear her opinions and everything.
Right, right.
Another bonus feature is Film Fast Facts. This is a track that plays during the film. It's basically like pop-up video. A little
okay.
Halloween icon pops up on the screen with notes about, it's little factoids and stuff about the film and its production. So that's pretty neat. You just watch the movie and these things kind of pop up here and there.
Right. For the kids out there, we should point out that pop-up video was a thing that back when VH1 and MTV actually showed music videos, that was actual music.
Which was rare.
Which is very rare.
Can you believe it?
When they got to a point where I don't know if they were starting to move away from that, they decided that music videos by themselves just wasn't enough. So they had to put pop-up blurbs in the videos describing how the videos were made and silly things going on there. But just I'm sure there's a group out there that don't even know what that is. Oh yeah, I was
probably
on all the time.
Not. I loved it. I thought it was great. A lot of useless knowledge,
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty cool. And I'm sure the thing is, if you watch this, if you prefer something like this over listening to a commentary, like I love commentaries, I think they're great, but it's a fun way to watch the movie and get the info that's probably being told to you anyway. So
right. I like to hear from the
it's
horse's
kind of a cool
mouth.
throwaway thing. Me too. But this was kind of neat. The crown jewel of this thing though is they call it a featurette, which seems kind of insulting. This thing is a 90-minute documentary called Halloween: A Cut Above the Rest.
I've seen
this
it.
was produced in 2000. Yeah, this was produced in 2003 for the 25th anniversary, and it is a hell of a good documentary. I mean, it cobbles together pretty much any key player involved in the film. Yep. They go into detail from everything from financing to production to casting to music and its legacy. I mean, it's wall to wall, everything you could ever want to know about Halloween. And again, from the horse's mouth, exactly like you said. Everyone who is involved is in it. And then the disc is rounded out with trailers, TV spots, and radio spots, which were on the previous disc, and
Mhm.
seemed kind of weird to just kind of post on the second disc. It seems like filler when you could have put something else.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned how that commentary was from a Criterion Laserdisc, right?
Mhm.
In lieu of the trailers and all that stuff that was already on disc one, there were things on that Laserdisc that could have come over too. Like they actually had the 1980 sneak preview segment from Siskel and Ebert where they
Okay.
praised the shit out of Halloween.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
these are two guys who were infamous for not liking slasher film. And this was one that they both agreed was terrifying and both loved it. So it was kind of cool. That's something cool that I know you could probably find it on YouTube, but at the same time, it was part of a Criterion Laserdisc that could have been ported over, but instead they just kind of tacked on the same trailers and stuff again.
Right.
They also had photo essays on the making of the film and the films that mimicked Halloween. They also had a separate music and effects track. This would have been an isolated score where you could have watched the film with just the audio effects, which is kind of cool.
Mhm.
So those are things that I feel like could have been ported over from the Criterion in lieu of trailers and shit that were already there.
Yeah.
So that's one gripe regarding the second disc anyway. And again, like I said, we're talking about a 15 disc set here, and you've got all these movies. Plus, if you take out Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, there's a bonus disc inside that has hours worth of additional material on top of what this already had.
Mhm.
Okay.
And they still didn't include that Criterion stuff in that.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. And
I wonder if
but what they
that
did
could have
give
been a
you,
rights thing, like Criterion owned that particular
it's very possible.
part, and
It is very
Shout
possible.
and Dimension and Anchor Bay couldn't really do anything with it. So
Right, and which is, yeah, that's definitely something I would probably assume as well. What you do get though, I won't talk about the features on the bonus disc that have to do with the sequels. I can get to those on another one. But as far as the first Halloween,
we'll go through all the sequels eventually, individually.
right? As far as this one's concerned, you do get a 97 photo still gallery. You get the TV version in full, 12 chapters, and I believe the TV inserts are in standard definition, but still looks great. It's all widescreen and looks wonderful.
Right.
The extended edition's hard to find nowadays. They don't re-release that like they do the
Did they ever
film,
release
so
it on DVD? Because I never saw it on DVD. I had it on
They did.
VHS. They did.
They did. I'll send you the picture and you can pop it up right now if you
Okay,
like. But that
cool.
they did do that. Plus, I don't know if you remember this. This was from the 90s. I actually kept this DVD. This was a limited edition lenticular case. I don't know how the effect comes in.
Right.
Does that look all right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Can you see it
We can see
change?
the difference. Yeah.
Good.
Maybe that's
This
the
was,
version I had. Did that have the TV?
This was a
version?
2-disc set. And the second disc is the TV version. So
Oh, maybe no.
this
I've never...
I managed to buy this off of Amazon just a few years ago for a decent price. So if you want the TV version, get this guy. It's just the limited edition from I think 1999.
Okay.
And it's my copy's one of I think 40,000 that were made. So it's definitely a limited edition, but if you can find it, even for the cool cover,
Right.
the TV version's in there.
Okay.
You also get Halloween Unmasked 2000, which is a half-hour special, also on that limited edition. It's produced and directed by Mark Cerulli, and it's narrated by Dee Snider, Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
And it looks like it was made around the time they were doing promotion for Halloween H2O, because a lot of the interviews are on the set from Deborah Hill and Jamie Lee Curtis and stuff. So there's that. And then rounding off that disc, as far as the first Halloween's concerned, there's about a 1.5-minute blurb with Mustafa Akkad about how he came to finance the film, and Horror's Hallowed Grounds. Again, I mentioned Sean Clark from Horror's Hallowed Grounds. He does a lot of bonus features for a lot of the Scream Factory releases.
Yeah.
This was his original pilot episode from 2005 of Horror's Hallowed Grounds, where he takes you on a tour of the Halloween locations.
The Myers house, the Wallace house,
yeah.
and the Doyle house, I think.
Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. And Sean is just he's a wealth of knowledge, and it's great that he was able to find all these locations again. Lastly, there was the Horrors Hallowed Grounds bus tour that runs about 11 and a half minutes, and it was shot during the 35 Years of Terror convention in November of 13, which I believe was when Jamie Lee went to the
Showed up.
convention.
Yeah.
He takes a bus tour of the Halloween sites, and the bus tour goes to a certain area, and then they get out and walk, and they got like Tommy Lee Wallace with them and Charles Cyphers, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little featurette. But that's it for the first Halloween, which is a wealth of information. If you were lucky enough to get that box set, it's amazing to have all of this information and all these bonus features. The box set is by no means perfect. We're recording this during a time when Scream Factory just released probably one of the most comprehensive Friday the 13th box sets I've ever seen. Okay? There's useless things on that thing that I'm glad are there, all right?
Right.
In retrospect, one of the things I wish this box set had, and I know I'm looking a gift horse in the mouth, I know I'm bitching, but I'm a completist, all right? Way back in the day, they released something called Halloween 25 Years of Terror.
I had that on DVD.
This was, yes, this is amazing. This is a fantastic documentary about the making of the film. And it's a 2-disc set, which is basically 2 full discs, including the documentary, of just bonus features. All of it has to do with the Halloween series. It has to do with the first film, everybody involved. I mean, again, the documentary itself is 84 minutes, and it's amazing. Aside from that, at the time, the 25th anniversary convention, which is arguably probably one of the biggest gatherings of the franchise cast and crew I've ever seen. There's so much there. There's so many bonus features. There's fans of Halloween featurette. There's extended celebrity interviews with people like Charles Cyphers and PJ Souls and Brian Andrews. A ton of stuff with Mustafa Akkad and Dean Cundy. There's even stuff with Nancy Loomis, who, only recently started coming back out and doing this kind of thing. There's panel discussions. All of them are about half an hour apiece. There's a producer's panel. There's location stills gallery, convention gallery, and even original artwork gallery. There's about 50-something pictures of like fan artwork.
Oh, wow.
Just cool shit like that. There's a music video called Pure Evil by a band called Vicious Disorder. It's kind of a Halloween themed metal song.
I don't think I dug that deep into the package when I had it. I watched all the convention stuff and all that in the documentary.
Yeah, and again, this is just for the first Halloween. There's stuff on that release that has to do with Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And none of it is in the box set. And the thing is, it's produced by Anchor Bay. It's not Dimension. It's not the type of studio that I feel like really grasps everything real hard. I feel like if they asked, that could have been an extra 2 discs,
right,
just to throw in there. Why not? It would probably have made this the most all-encompassing box set for Halloween that there'd ever be.
Actually, they could have gotten it all on 1 disc, because we're talking DVD transfer to Blu-ray.
True. Yeah,
it could have just been one extra disc.
It could have been, and you wouldn't have to, weed out the Rob Zombie Halloween 2 to get the bonus disc. It could have just had its own case like the Friday the 13th set does.
Right.
And there's nothing to say that it won't happen. That's the sad thing. Like I said, this Halloween is such a fluid film in terms of rights that this box set, you could plunk down the hard-earned cash and buy it for an outrageous amount of money, or wait for the next big anniversary date to roll around and they'll probably do something else with it. That's the thing. Even if you miss the boat on this box set, as much as I'm singing the praises of it, as much as I personally love it, this isn't the last you're going to see of Halloween. This isn't the last limited edition that's going to come out. Halloween's just too popular and has too many releases up to this point to ever stop being re-released in some shiny new edition. So I personally think if you miss the boat, the next one's probably on the horizon. It may not come from Scream Factory, but it'll be worth it to pick something up. And if you do see this box set floating around at a convention or something for a decent price, my God, jump
Grab
on that
it.
fucking thing
Yeah.
like right away. Yeah, it is. It's in my opinion one of my favorite box sets that I own. Not without its faults, and a lot of those come with the sequels. I will get into that. But as far as the first movie's concerned, that's my only real gripe as far as bonus features.
Mm.
The 25th anniversary, 25 years of terror, was a wealth of additional stuff that really could have
Absolutely.
just been, it
Popped
could have
on
been
there.
transferred to it, like you said, a whole nother Blu-ray disc, and just rounded out that box set for something really perfect, in my
Right.
opinion.
So, and we could get
but
it.
yes.
They've done a steelbook edition as well.
Yes.
Like you said, the 35 years package was a 3-disc set by itself.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
I mean, there's
honestly,
there's
there was a box set with the 25th anniversary that came with Halloween 4, 5, and I think the Blu-ray of 25 Years of Terror, and like a commemorative mask.
okay.
They're always doing something with
Something with
Halloween.
it, yeah.
So I mean, to miss the boat on this box set, it's not like you couldn't Frankenstein together what we have here through other various means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I said, you've got the limited edition DVD that I showed you that can give you the TV cut. There's the copy that Ian has. There's the digibook from the 35 years. There's so many different ways you can buy Halloween. I'm just saying, as far as a one-stop shop goes, that deluxe edition box set
is
really
the way to
is.
go. Yeah.
That's the one that I think you'd have to work pretty hard to top.
Right.
So that would be my personal opinion. But if you're just a casual fan of the film, there's dozens of copies out there that you could get your hands on if you're just a fan of the movie. But if you're a bonus features guy, take the stuff, if you wrote down what I was talking about and some of the things that are on it, you can find individual releases to create what was kind of just cleanly packaged here.
Right. Absolutely. So, well, I mean, I guess that kind of wraps up our first video episode, our first visual episode. It's a bit of a long one. I don't know if we'll
It is.
Which is fine because it goes with the film that we're talking about.
That's the thing with a movie like this, with the type of legacy it has and how many different releases and sequels and everything. I figured this was a good epic way to say we're back.
Absolutely.
I
And
that's a good one.
That's actually going to be in the title. It's going to say Epic Halloween.
There you go.
So yeah. I going forward, we're going to try and get an episode up every week if we can. If not, there will always be something out. Bonus material. There will be something out every week, or more than more in a week, depending on what how ambitious I get. Anyway. But we've got some archived material, audio material that we're going to throw out there. Once in a while, one of us might just throw a quick video together and just, a 10-15 minute thing, talking about maybe something new that we want to see, or something we just saw that we never saw before. That
I was even thinking at some point, maybe every Tuesday, every new release day, just do a quick rundown of the new horror releases for that date.
So we can do that, and
whether we've seen the movies or not, we can at least tell you that they're out there.
We're just going to try and keep the content going. So but that's going to require you to subscribe and like and share and all that fun stuff that all the YouTube people ask for.
You're going to have to do that fun stuff if you want us to keep it going.
Right.
Because it's not a whole too much lot of work for us, but if we're going to make the time, we want to make sure that you're enjoying it and coming
we
back.
want people to watch it and comment. Tell us what you think, good or bad. We can take it. We got thick skin, so just
we do.
Make sure it's reasonable.
If you hit us on a day that, if you're just going to be like you're a bunch of hipsters who just like classic movie, come on.
Right.
You're talking to a guy who loves, at least in this case, I love Jaws 3. Come at me, bro. I don't care.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, there's nothing hipster about what we do here. We just want to give you our unbiased opinion and hopefully give you enough information that if you're a collector, like most of us are,
right,
save you a few bucks and not have to keep buying the same goddamn movie every few minutes, you know.
Right, right. Or
But
if you like
also just
spending your
enjoy
money,
yourself.
you know, if you like spending your money, that's
Hey,
fine.
if you're the kind of person who can just throw that money around, make it rain,
It's a little
give me a
dry
drop.
here. Yeah, it's, you can sprinkle some of that over
I
here.
was gonna say, I mean, you know, I do pretty good, but you know, I can't just go out willy-nilly and buy whatever I want, man. I gotta penny pinch, and this
Absolutely.
is how I do it. I want to
Yeah.
I try to do the research so that you don't have to.
Mhm.
And hopefully for the newbies that come to visit our channel, we've intrigued you about the film enough that you'll go check it out if
Right.
you haven't already.
Right. I mean, it's very unlikely that many people have not seen it, but you know, a lot of times, like I'll watch other YouTube providers or content providers talk about these movies that I've seen a million times. I mean,
yeah,
um,
it's just
you
cool to
know,
get a
just
fresh perspective.
yeah, see what their thoughts are on it, and you know, sometimes I disagree with them, sometimes I completely agree with them. But that's what I do. I don't really watch TV. I mean, I catch up on TV through Netflix and Hulu, but I don't really watch TV. I watch YouTube. YouTube is my day-to-day TV. So
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that, man.
yeah. So
You know,
hopefully, you know, somebody will get something new out of this or a new perspective or
that'd be
something.
great.
So
If not, you know, it's just cool to hear other people appreciate the same things you do, and
absolutely,
that's what we're here for, man. It's nostalgia first, and
passion
you know,
second, I guess maybe.
passion second.
Yeah.
Is
Of the
nostalgia the
genre.
same as passion? I don't know.
Oh
Can you
yeah,
have a
maybe.
passionate nostalgia?
Yes, I think you can. So I guess they're not mutually exclusive. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe not.
Nostalgia is more of like a feeling you get from past memories, where passion is more of a drive or
Keeping that memory flowing.
right, right. I just realized I had my little in action my figure Michael Myers sitting here.
Very
Just
nice. I
for
like that
fun.
dude.
I didn't have
Yeah.
you know the box set, but I've got a little in action figure Michael Myers. I got
I
my Jase
have.
here
It's gonna be
too.
probably be hard to make out. This
Oh
guy
yeah,
used to work. He went out. He's got lights in there. He lights up. I got him chilling with my my Halloween movies over here, but
that's another
you
thing.
know,
There's some new Sideshows is releasing some new um, action figures, or not action figures, but figurines and stuff. Um, we might do a video on that too, because there's a couple specifically Halloween ones that I'm looking at getting if I can. They're not too expensive.
for sure.
Specifically
And
the
that's something else I
Dr.
wanted.
Loomis one.
Yeah, that's definitely something else I wanted to touch on before we go. Is it is called Ian and Jason's Video Cellar. Emphasis on the video, but it's a horror show. And
Right.
if we download or upload a video where we give you like the history of the damn Ouija board, or you know, the short films of George Méliès that influenced horror, or just a horror book that we read, it's a horror channel for
Right.
sure.
Absolutely.
And you know, we're passionate about horror and all of its media, you know, movies, video games, whatever. We're all about it, and hopefully we can provide enough content to keep any fan satiated. So
Yep.
that's pretty much
So,
the plan, I think, from here on out.
yeah. So like we said, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification button for new video, new content, and hopefully we can get it all out to you real soon. So
Yep, I'll be here.
yep.
You'll
So
be here.
I'll
All
be
you be
here. We'll all be here. So anyway, that's it for us. We will talk to you later.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Take care.
Yeah.
Be safe, guys, and keep digging it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.